Thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Jasmine Espinoza and I'm the marketing coordinator here at Mars Air Systems. In today's webinar, we'll be covering improving efficiencies and reducing operational costs in warehouse and manufacturing facilities. Our presenter today is Curtis Rosol, Business Development Engineer here at Mars. Just a few quick announcements before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available to view and share on our YouTube channel. Once it's ready, we'll send you an email with the recording link. We are also hosting 2 gift card raffles for today's webinar, one for attendees and one for those that complete the survey at the very end. The survey will also include a section where you can let us know if you're interested in hosting a lunch and learn with our team. If that's something that you're interested in, please feel free to select yes in that section of the survey, and we'll be more than happy to connect with you. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Curtis to get us started.
All right. Thank you, Jasmine. Should get set up here. All right. So welcome everyone. Thanks again for hopping on this webinar today. My name is, like Jasmine said, Curtis Rosol. I'm a business development engineer here at Mars. Today's webinar is going to be focused around air curtains, more in the manufacturing and distribution and industrial applications. So those of you that have sat in on my webinars before, we're going to do this one kind of a little bit different and just keep things interesting here. It's going to be kind of 3 sections in today's webinar. So the first is just going to be talking about common challenges that we see in warehouse projects, and then specifically how air curtains can help solve those challenges or problems, and where you can install them in these applications to provide the most effectiveness. Then I'm going to walk you guys through a case study. So tell you kind of like a start to finish, right, of an actual case study that we did. And hopefully that'll give all of you guys a more clear understanding from start to finish, how we were able to help one of our customers solve a few issues they were actually having in their building with air curtains. And then we'll finish out the webinar today, just going over some additional applications that you might see in this industrial space, and then some resources available, and then the Q&A at the end. If you guys got questions, I just put them in the chat as we go, and then Jasmine will read them off at the end, so we can get through the content in the time here. So that being said, I'm going to start out with, again, the typical challenges that we see in these warehouse projects. Now, again, those of you that have sat in on my webinars before, you might have heard me say, the bigger the door, the bigger the problem, right? And especially in these warehouse manufacturing industrial type applications, you're typically dealing with larger roll-up doors. And to even compound this problem even more, a lot of times they have like shipping door like bays where there's like 30 of them, one next to the other. So these problems are exacerbated even more in these situations, right? And that can cause a numerous number of issues. Obviously, you're going to have fluctuating building temperatures. The overall indoor air quality is going to be reduced. You're going to have cleanliness issues. Employee comfort can be a big problem. And these are things that you wouldn't typically think of, as problems maybe when the building's first being constructed, or problems that could happen down in the future. But they're real problems that happen, and a lot of these are actually a part of the case study that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And again, hopefully it's things that you can kind of think of moving forward, and maybe prevent these problems from happening in the first place in your own projects in the future. So now I'm going to show you guys just a cool tool that we have available. Again, demonstrating where we can use air curtains in these type of applications. So this is actually hyperlinked to our website. I'm going to pull that up real quick. And I basically, what I call this is our interactive rendering. Now we have actually quite a bit of these what we call industry pages on our website. Obviously, for the webinar today, I'm showing you guys the one specifically for manufacturing, warehouse, and distribution centers. But like I said, we have various different ones, and they're all kind of tailored to the different industries. So definitely recommend you guys go to our website and check out those other industry pages as you guys see fit. Depending on which ones you guys see or work on projects in. But this one, again, I'm going to focus on specifically the manufacturing spaces. Now, the reason why I like this so much and why I want to point you guys here is, again, it's an interactive tool that can help you guys think about and understand the different applications of air curtains in these type of projects. So all of the plus signs you see here on the page, they actually give you a little bit of a snip kind of snapshot of how an air curtain can be installed over that specific opening, the benefits it can provide, and then the typical models or units that we see installed over those openings. So, I've been talking about, shipping, receiving doors. That's obviously a big part of the webinar today. This is one example there. So you see the receiving loading dock. It breaks down, a high top level overview on how an air curtain can be beneficial installed over that opening, and then the most common types of models that we have available over those openings as well. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of them, but again, I recommend you guys just go through and again, play around on this page, click through it, and hopefully this sparks some ideas on maybe some applications in these type of applications that you might not have thought of using an air curtain before that can provide some benefit. Customer entry doors, I'll just click on one more. You got walk-ins, coolers, and freezers. And a lot of times these are interior openings, right? So that's kind of another way I want you guys to think about this is air curtains are beneficial to separate the outdoor or exterior environment from the interior space, but it can also be really good to separate interior environments as well, like you see here. So wanted to just show that to you guys. Again, a really good tool to hopefully get you guys thinking about where else we can use air curtains in these type of applications. All right. So now let's get into the case study. Again, I want to take you guys through a start to finish example. This was an actual project that we did. Basically showing a problem that our customer had and how we used air curtains to solve it. They actually had a couple problems, which I'll get into. So kind of laying the groundwork here, right? The customer that we had, it was a residential wood cabinet manufacturer. I believe their plant was in Illinois in the Midwest. But, obviously manufacturing or making wood cabinets, consistent building temperatures was really important. So their main thing is they wanted to keep their building, their production area as close to 65 degrees Fahrenheit as possible throughout the year, right? Just for quality control, for overall comfort, which I'll kind of get into it a little bit more here. Now, the big problem they had was they had, sort of like I mentioned earlier, they had about 30 large dock doors, kind of one next to the other for shipping trucks coming in and out throughout the day. So as you can imagine, those doors are opening and closing all throughout the day, which can be, can create problems specifically in production or manufacturing plants, right? Now, specifically to them, the problems they were having, there was a few, like I mentioned. So obviously, with those dock doors opening and closing throughout the day, they had significant drops in building temperatures and they had really big fluctuations. Now, they tried dock sealers, right? Those were pretty much ineffective for them. If the trucks don't line up properly, you still might have gaps. The trucks were damaging the dock seals, right? That was reducing the effectiveness. But ultimately, even when these trucks were lined up with the dock sealers, the problem they were having was the trucks themselves had cold air in them. So when those doors were open and they were, delivering whatever in and out of the trucks, that cold air was getting into the plant regardless. And that was causing these temperature fluctuations, which, had essentially created a few problems. Number one, it became a quality control issue. So because of the temperature fluctuations, they were having wood laminates cracking, and that was, obviously reducing the amount of output of the product that they could put out there. They also had high employee absentee rates. So, especially in these cold winter months, the working environments were so uncomfortable. They were having employees actually skipping work, right? If you're a factory worker and you got a 10-hour shift in a really cold warehouse setting, you're going to be less motivated to come in, or even if you do show up, it's going to be really uncomfortable and you're not going to want to work at your best. So these were the problems they were having. And again, it was largely around those dock doors being open, especially in those winter months. So the solution we provided, we obviously came in with some air curtains. Now, what we did is we actually installed electric heated air curtains. There was a couple of reasons we did that. Number one, it obviously can just act as a supplemental heater. While that's not typically the main application of our electric heated units, it can just be ran as supplemental heat if needed. But really, more importantly, it stopped that cold air from the trucks from coming in as much. So, we like to say air curtains are about 70 to 80% effective. So, if you imagine that, right, there's that cold air in the trucks coming in, any of that still seeps through beyond the air curtain, that heated air is really going to help prevent those temperature fluctuations in the building, especially versus, again, those dock sealers, which were providing no protection at all. Now, the really cool thing about this project was we actually did follow up with the customer after a year of their installation, a year after the installation of the air curtains, and we got some really good feedback from them, right? So, number one was the ROI. So the projected ROI on the project was about 12 winter months. Now, what does that mean? Just to kind of break it down for everyone here. We basically, to make things simple, we separate our ROIs into 6 summer months and 6 winter months for simplicity. So this told us it was about a 2-year ROI. And after the year of installation, that basically told us that they recouped about 50% of what they spent on the air curtain projects solely on energy savings. So that was a really good win for us, really good win for them as well. But really, the more important thing was we solved the problems that they had in the beginning, right? We have this intrinsic benefit of energy savings with air curtains, but at the end of the day, we're solving problems, right? That's the most important thing. And we achieved that to some extent here as well. So we were told the laminate cracks were reduced by about 15% and the employee absentee rate reduced about 20%. So not only are they saving on the energy saving side of the building, right? Reducing the problems they had, reducing the laminate cracks means there was, a better turnover, better output on product, and then higher employee, show up rate meant that they could output more product as well. So that was a really good application. Now, a couple of I guess, additional warehouse applications just to mention. I like to show the pictures here of, again, shipping, receiving doors, just to kind of show we have larger options available. I believe the ones we had here were our standard units in the case study. But we do have, these are our WMI and our BD units displayed here. Units that can go up to 32 feet. So I think a common misconception is if you have really large doors, air curtains aren't going to be effective. I would say unless you got something really crazy, we almost always have a solution. Even if it's just a really wide opening, we can always tandem mount units together as well. Sorry. Cold storage is another side of this kind of industrial space I want to touch on because I think it's often overlooked too. Again, a lot of times these cold storage doors, they just open to interior spaces, so you might not always think to use air curtains. But similar to what I mentioned earlier, right? The larger the door opening, the larger the problem. Similar with cold storage, the larger temperature delta, the larger the problem. This is when you start having problems with condensation, frost buildup, fogging, right? Things that you wouldn't typically see over maybe at like a customer entry door or a door opening just to the outside environment. So air curtains are a great contactless way to basically provide this barrier, right? You have energy savings, keeping all that cold air in. I like to say it's a really good alternative to the strip curtains, which can be dirty, cumbersome, a safety hazard if you can't see through them. Just a better alternative for cold storage doors. Now, we also use our Clean Air series in cold storage, like you see on the right there. Those are actually our VHP units, which have a HEPA filter, a UV light, and bipolar ionizers in them. I believe the example you see here was a cold storage for a hospital project, so they wanted to make sure all the air coming out of the air curtain was as clean as possible to make sure the overall, sanitation was basically as clean, and the IAQ was the best quality that it could be. Now, we also use Clean Air series inside the coolers as well, particularly our UV units, which we've seen through a few of our different research projects we've done on this, that it can actually reduce mold and pathogen growth, which could increase the shelf life of your produce and keep that overall cold storage box cleaner, and now you're getting a savings on, again, just getting more shelf life out of your produce, in addition to having the air curtain being a barrier for the door as well. Last couple examples of cold storage. Another interior opening example. I've talked about this one a couple of times. I think it's a really good story about humidity control too. So the example on that left there was a beer distributor that had issues with condensation on the cardboard boxes, on the pallets, and they were really losing time, labor, money on having to repackage, repalletize the beer cases that you see there. So again, kind of like I talked about earlier with the case study, the main, or I think the most common benefit of the air curtains is that energy savings, is that temperature control. But at the end of the day, these things are really solving problems too. And it's not always the things that would be the most obvious potential issues, on the surface. Like I said, temperature control, flying insects. It's really tailoring it to what the customer needs solved. And these air curtains, the more projects we're installing air curtains on, the more of these kind of unique or I guess various solutions that we're able to provide. And then on the right is just another example of a cold storage door. It's a tall, narrow door, more of an industrial application. Really what I like to show here is that, we can install these in a bunch of different ways. Obviously, this is a vertically mounted air curtain. But I think one of the most common issues with air curtains is, all the door openings are different. There's various different types of obstructions. A big question we always get is, hey, here's my door. I understand I want to install it right above the door, but it doesn't make sense here. How can I install this? And we're, really good about coming up with various different ways you can install these air curtains around the doors and still provide maximum effectiveness in terms of, creating that separation between the environments. Now, if you guys made it this far in the webinar, that tells me you probably have some interest in this industrial space, or you work, closely or largely in this industrial manufacturing warehouse space. So I wanted to include this slide. I thought it would be helpful just to kind of lay out some other opportunities in this space. And the whole idea here is pattern recognition, right? So a lot of these roll-up doors, dock doors, man doors, if you use them, if you use air curtains in one project, the application is probably similar in a bunch of other similar types of projects that you see listed out here. Really, one of the biggest ones I just want to point out on this list is data centers. I know that's probably the largest project opportunity everyone's seeing out there now. I'm sure we can all agree on that. We are seeing, actually, we're starting to see more interest in air curtains in these type of projects, more around the shipping and warehouse sections of the buildings. But the feedback we're getting is, there is quite a bit of shipments coming in and out of these buildings, replacing parts in the server rooms, right? Making sure there's as little downtime as possible. So keeping these buildings, keeping these warehouses as clean as possible is of utmost importance to these data centers, and making sure there really is no infiltration as the parts go from the shipping trucks into the server rooms and so on. So that's basically the breakdown of the webinar today. I'm going to leave this resource page up. But, again, like I mentioned earlier, I think the website is a really great tool to start product selection program. We have an ROI calculator there. We have a YouTube channel. And then our specification documents are available on our website as well. But that being said, I want to thank everyone for your time today. And I guess we'll wait a couple minutes for questions to trickle in, but I'll turn it back to Jasmine to kind of, I guess, read those off, and then we'll hopefully be able to answer as many as we can before we run out of time today.
Thank you, Curtis. And right at 20 minutes. Perfect timing.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking around. Yes, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. We can also unmute your mic if you'd like to say it out loud. That would be great, too. I can give you access. And then it looks like one did come into the Q&A. So first question, can you install these in residential applications?
Yeah, so I didn't, I guess, really talk about that on this, but we can actually, and that's another sector we're seeing more interest in as well, residential applications. Those of you that are more, I guess, dock door dealers or in the dock door dealer space, we can, use them with garage doors. Really, more commonly, we see them around like back patio areas. And like I said, that's becoming more popular. We're getting more requests for those as well. So a lot of times people like to have, open seating in their backyard area, like to have the doors from the kitchen open up to the backyard. So we see more commonly our phantom units in those applications, which are actually recessed into the ceiling or soffit. We've done a couple projects where, we've had our phantom units recessed into like pergolas in the outdoor areas. So there's like an awning and people, again, kind of like to sit out in the backyard there. They have a nice patio set up. Last thing they want is to have all the flying insects, flying around as they're watching TV out there or, having a drink or eating their food. So we do various projects like that in the residential space as well.
All right, another question here about air curtains with heat. Is the control temp based or just door switch?
The control temp based or door switch? I'll defer to who's on the engineering team here that would like to talk about
I'm
that
here.
one.
This is Andy. I'm one
Is
of the
that Andy?
engineers. Yeah, Randy, typically the fan control is turned on and off by the door switch, but the heat is turned on and off by a thermostat. So most of our electric heated air curtains come with a thermostat by default. So it will turn on and off the heat based on whether or not the temperature set point is satisfied.
Thank you, Andy. All right, another question here. What about a Wi-Fi with outdoor sensor?
So that sounds like that would be and again, I don't know if Andy or anyone else wants to jump in. That sounds like that'd be like a simple link application there.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are we talking about a wireless thermostat that gets mounted outside? Randy, is that what you meant? Yeah, okay. So we don't by default, he's looking at it, he just responded yes in the chat. We don't have a wireless thermostat available. I'm sure if you find one that has an outdoor, an outdoor sensor with an indoor receiver, I'm sure that we could find a way to connect it to the air curtain with via the regular 24-volt low voltage connection that we use. But yeah, it's not something that we offer currently.
All right. Next question. Where are we at with AMCA certification with the low pros, and do our air curtains meet BABA requirements?
Yeah, so that's an ongoing conversation. I would say reach out to us. It's not a straightforward answer. I'd say reach out to our team, and we could probably get you something more specific to the requirements you're needing.
All right, another question. Is it required to interlock this air system with the fire alarm panel?
I'll defer that one to the engineering team too, if they've got a response for that one.
I'm not aware of a requirement that the air curtain be tied into the fire alarm interlock. We do have that option, though. Our motor control panel, you can add the fire interlock adder so that it can tie into it. If you were dealing with a local requirement, then absolutely we can satisfy that.
Perfect. And give me 1 second while I look at the chat. All right. It looks like we just have one final question. What are the largest opening sizes you can cover?
Yeah, so I'm not sure, but I guess I laid that one out too. So we can go all the way up to, I believe, 32 feet tall. And I think our widest units are like 15 or 16 feet, but like I mentioned, we can always tandem mount units together if you have a really wide opening. And like I showed you guys too on that cold storage application, a lot of times if you have a really tall door, but it's more narrow, we can do something like a vertical installation too. We can even do an air curtain on each side of the door if it's really wide. So we have a lot of different ways we can get around a really large door. I would just say if you're unsure, reach out to us or your local rep if you know who that is, and we can get you in touch with them as well. If not, and they can help you out with your particular um, project application.
Okay, looks like one more question.
One
So
more
can it be
question. All right.
tied? Yes, one final one, sorry. So can it
That's
be
good.
tied into a complete door system? Sorry, got a pop up. Can it be tied into a complete door system with the dock controls, or is it done only through the door opener?
Yeah, that sounds. Oh, you guys got the engineering questions today. I think the answer is yes, but I'm sure someone on engineering could go more in depth for the controls side of it.
Yeah, I can take that. Hey guys, this is Naga. Yes, you can connect the air curtain to any kind of control system. We typically do this for automatic doors, where you have a control panel and connect that to the automatic door controller. So the air curtain will be integrated nicely with the loading dock and all that stuff. So we have different types of controls as well: thermal, motion sensor, beam sensor, and all kind of backnet control and all that stuff. So just let us know what you need, and we can provide a solution.
All right, looks like we're all good there. If you guys have any other questions, we'll reach out to you directly via email. Again, thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. We have these webinars about every 6 weeks. So our next webinar is going to be on kitchen receiving doors. So be on the lookout for that. I will be sending out an email. And I'm also going to include the webinar feedback form here. As I mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, we have a survey there, which you can also fill out. There's a section about lunch and learns. If you'd like to have a lunch and learn with our team, there's a section there that you can select yes or no. And we will also be raffling off a gift card winner for that survey as well. So one for attendees and one for the survey. And yeah, thanks again for joining us in today's webinar. Thank you, Curtis, for a great presentation. This will be available on YouTube probably towards the end of the week, but I will be sending out an email.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Jasmine. Have a good day. Thanks.